As we heard in the kickoff, the audience shared a little bit about their goals for Web Summit. So maybe I'll bring the question across to the three of you to hear a bit more about your plans and your goals. So Reagan, I know Clio's making quite a splash at the upcoming summit, so maybe we could hear a bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. So yeah, Clio's pretty invested in Web Summit. We have Jack Newton going to be speaking on the main stage on the third day, I believe. So very excited for that. And I think, first I just want to actually acknowledge how exciting it is to even have Web Summit in Vancouver. I think that's a pretty monumental thing for Vancouver to see the tech ecosystem of Canada and globally just come together in our incredible city. So very excited for that, and maybe a little competitive with Toronto in that respect. But yeah, Clio, we're really looking at it for a few things. Obviously, brand presence and helping bring Clio to the global stage is something that I care deeply about and something that we want to always participate in as a Canadian company. I think it's an incredible networking opportunity, both for subject matter experts, investors, partnerships, Canadian founders, you name it. I think we're going to send some of our talent to Web Summit, as well as some of our executives will be there, including myself. And I think it's just a really great opportunity for us to continue to learn and learn from others, but also share our expertise. So we're really excited about it.
Awesome. I'll come over to Rob next. I know, Rob, you already had a busy week. I know you were hosting an AI summit yesterday. You've got a lot on the go as well, bringing that spotlight on AI companies. Maybe you could share a bit with us about that.
Sure. Thanks very much. And thanks everyone for attending today. So I sort of, I'll answer a lot of questions kind of wearing two hats. One, my startup is very early stage, which is what a lot of Web Summit caters to. And then on the ecosystem side, maybe on the ecosystem side first, to kind of echo what Reagan said, this is pretty cool, right? The government and lots of people came together through a lot of work to bring Web Summit here, and it's going to be here for the next 3 years. And so there's an anchor point over 3 years with even events already planned in between to kind of create a bit of a flywheel for BC. So this is a huge opportunity. There are people coming from all over the world. The Startup Pavilion was originally going to be 750 companies. They've already accepted over 1,000. I think 600 from Canada, 200 from BC. So we've got some really, really great international exposure, which of course, in the backdrop of what's happening in the world, it's great for us to be able to have these connections. From a startup standpoint, I'm looking for the business development side. I'm really excited about the companies that are coming, the strength and quality of the companies that are coming here. I'm doing a lot of work with the Jedi Ministry and Innovate BC and others on the BC Pavilion and other things. So there's a lot of trade missions coming. There's a lot of big corporates coming from outside, other countries. So I think for everyone on the call, like this is, and we'll talk about this more, but this is going to be a phenomenal opportunity to connect. And it will be, again, a couple more years. So this is kind of like our training wheels year, but it should be very good.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's very exciting. And Mike, I know you spend a lot of time working with startups. You're very involved in Vancouver Startup Week and other events. Excited to hear what your thoughts are on the upcoming summit.
Yeah, I would echo Reagan and Rob's sentiment. The fact that this is the location for Web Summit for the next 3 years is amazing. It will create a really galvanizing sort of centrifugal force around the community, which I believe since COVID has been a bit dissipated. And this is going to be really a nice way to bring everything back together and kind of see people you haven't seen in a long period of time, and just explore what the potential is in this marketplace, and not only do that for internal facing purposes inside of our ecosystem, but also to show the world what this ecosystem is capable of when it gets together, and all the tide lifts all the boats. So from a Fasken perspective, similar to Rob's secondary mode, right? We're in the business of business development in that space. So the ideal for us would be to basically network and look for new opportunities to work with exciting entrepreneurs and new businesses. The Fasken kind of model, if I can call it that, is really a growth partnership model. So we work with entrepreneurs from ideation to IPO, and we're sort of a full stack legal services team in the startup space. So we were first to market in Canada in that regard, and that model has always served us well. So when we approach an event like this, it's really about not only business developing and getting our own name and brand ensconced in with founders that we don't already know, but also to network for the good of the overall ecosystem. So we end up becoming connectors in a lot of ways, which is stuff that we can't bill for, but it also actually creates a healthier ecosystem from which we would obviously benefit, being a major contributor to it. So, when we look at an event like this, it's listening to the people we speak to, it's hearing their challenges, hearing their needs, and listening to other people who have, can provide those opportunities or help shore up those opportunities, and trying to connect the dots for people. And so just basically building on that network whilst business developing and prospecting for new clients that we can partner with through their journey.
That's great. I can attest to you being a great connector, Mike, for sure. And a great supporter of the ecosystem as one of our key members. So appreciate that. Maybe I'll come back to you, Reagan. Earlier in the poll, we talked about the different priorities people are going to have when they're going to Web Summit, but there's only so much time and there's going to be a lot on the go. What do you recommend for founders on how to prioritize their time between connecting with investors, building partnerships, gaining visibility? How do you get that all done?
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely a split, which implies probably different stages of maturity in the folks that are on the call in terms of their business goals. And I think that's really the thing to nail down is where are you in your maturity curve in terms of your GTM strategy, in terms of your funding strategy? What's the most important thing for you in terms of, are you pre-market fit and you're looking to understand and validate that? Are you optimizing for some type of signal from your customers, or validating messaging, or testing demand? You're going to have all of that audience there to be able to have those conversations, be able to get that feedback. If you're entering scale mode, I'd say partnerships and capital is going to become a really critical thing for you to nail down. So really looking at who's attending, if you can get your hands on that, or and putting together your target list of folks that you want to talk to, that you want to get thoughts from, that you want to make an impression on, or you want to sell to, if that's one of your goals. But I think really show up present, be really intentional about what you are trying to achieve there. There's going to be a lot of things going on. I create checklists of things that I want to achieve and the folks that I want to talk to, so I have an opportunity to make sure that I get what I need from that. But I think probably one of my biggest points of advice is really to think long term. Regardless of your goals today, you're going to meet people, whether that's investors or partners or potential customers, that may not be a today partnership, maybe a future partnership. That's one of the things that Clio has done, and in particular Jack Newton, our co-founder and CEO, has done really well, was really just be surrounded by folks, make an impression with folks that can help us long term. So we still have conversations with people that met Jack back in the day, that are finally ready for our stage, or finally ready for our point in what Clio is trying to achieve. So I think that's really the tips that I would share with the group.
Excellent. Great practical tips on the checklist, but also that long-term thinking I think is really important. Mike, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, those are great. I mean, I can't improve on them, so I'll try to find, those are great tips. I really can't improve on them. So I'm going to try to find, something that's incremental to that, which is also the goal setting, right? I'm channeling my high school guidance counselor father here. What are your goals? What do you want to achieve, right? It's like, it's before you step foot, because it's pretty clear that the 20,000, 25,000 delegates, and I've been to Web Summit Collision, as it was once called before. It's overwhelming at times, and I'm not a shy person. So if I'm approaching that as an opportunity, I want to make sure, I'm jumping on your point a little bit, Reagan, but it's what are my actual objectives? What do I want to come away with? What can I measurably come away with from this event? And literally go down that list and tick the boxes. And at the end of that period, at the end of the event, actually kind of have a collective kind of discussion with your co-founders and talk about the return on investment, the ROI, the goals that you set. Were they actually achievable? Let's go next year with a different set of goals and a different set of expectations. But if you don't actually set those goals at the outset and take a bit of time, right? Get the list of attendees, find out what the agendas are. Don't just go to the talk that is applicable to your vertical. Actually go to the little snake pit networking session outside of the talk, because that's where all the people that registered to go to that particular session that are in your vertical are going to be. So if you know that there's going to be a bunch of people in your vertical that are at that event, make sure that as a goal for that event that you speak to 3 people, 5 people, 10 people, whatever your measurable, achievable goals are, and just hit those goals as much as you can. And preparation is going to help you feel less overwhelmed, because you will have in your mind the 5 to 10 things that you had planned to do that day, and you will get through them because you will know what they are and you will have planned for them. And obviously, if you get swept up in a conversation with a VC fund that wants to write the check for your Series seed and they're going to take the whole number down, fine. Obviously that's a nice deviation from your objectives, but yeah, I think it's just the prep would get you further along, and obviously would make it so that the whole experience is less overwhelming and more ROI.
That's excellent. Thank you. And I know there is an excellent app for the conference.
Mhm.
I haven't had a chance to deep dive it. Maybe Rob Goehring's taking a look at it. A great resource in terms of doing that preparation and that research. So I'll tag you in here, Rob.
No, and I appreciate it. So, and I would completely agree. I think, what Mike and Reagan said, every event, Web Summit or others, is won or lost in preparation. And so you need your strategy, you need to know who you're talking to. The app is critical. And what the app will allow you to do is find out who's going to be there, work ways to get in touch with people, message them, make connections. You can start doing that now. I'm getting pings every day on things already in the app. So that is a key tool that Web Summit really hangs their hat on as one of their keys to success. And a lot of folks end up in WhatsApp groups after, and they form long-lasting connections that go in between or beyond the event. So huge. I think the other really important thing outside of the strategy is that tactical component, and Mike kind of hit on it. You've got to be ready to pivot, right? Something can change, something can happen. It's big, it's noisy. Know what your plan B, C, and D is if any one day is not working out the way you'd hoped. And also what's available. And that is a big part of the app, is you may have a grand strategy, and as you get into the app, you're like, I can't get to that person or this person. Then you've got to have a backup, right? You've got to know what's going to be successful and measure that, like everyone else has said, every day. I think the other really important thing, 2 other important things. One is if you are connected with like your local BC Trade Invest folks, they are working hard to organize a whole bunch of things, as is the BC government at the BC Pavilion, which will have sort of a split of digital, life science, digital health, and AI quantum over the 3 days of the BC booth, kind of in that order, I think, Digi, life science, AI quantum. Trade Invest folks are working on these B2B matchmaking sessions. They're trying to get meetings going. So if you've got a rep, talk to them. If you don't, go get one. And then I think the other one is really about the after hours too. I think, you know, the Web Summit after hours and all the events, there's already a list of like 20 or 30 sidecar events happening. There are a couple of lists floating around. I think a few of us are trying to build a consolidated one and share it somewhere, because a lot of them are already filling up. But both Mike and Reagan said that, you know, a lot of time, if you've been to Blazer Web Summit before, been like South by Southwest or these other huge crazy events, you know, it's often where you get to have a bite to eat or a drink or something with someone that isn't maybe on the show floor, that solidifies that relationship and gets you out of, there's something about the breaking the bread or sharing a drink or something that gets you into a different mode, kind of past that prefrontal cortex of analytical, you know, thing, and it gets you into a relationship. And again, I know a lot of people that have built relationships that have lasted for years from these events. So those would be my quick tips.
Can I add? That's awesome. Can I just add a quick one to that you made me think of this, Rob? Is one of the things I found really effective to be involved in those sort of sidecar breaking the bread, kind of just grabbing a quick cup of coffee because it's loud in the hall. So let's just go to Starbucks next door, or I should say Artigiano or somewhere like that. You know, is the LinkedIn outreach, right? So if you know that there's going to be certain people there, without being obviously annoying, it's important to feel empowered to reach out as part of your goal setting and your planning and your strategy to people via LinkedIn and say, hey, listen, we've never met. I know that there's a big event. Are you going? Are you not? I'd love to grab a cup of coffee with you if you're there. You know, let's connect. This is my WhatsApp. This is my cell number. This is my email, whatever you think. And you may never get a reply. But you know, the 2 to 5 people that do reply are going to make you hitting your goals and your objectives and a lot easier. And you're going to have more meaningful connections with them because you have something kind of already in the diary, so to speak. And that person, you know, might be more inclined to give you 15, 20 minutes and grab a beer after the thing wraps or not. And who knows what a cup of coffee or a beer leads to. So that's part of the plan. I would do a little bit of outreach before as well. I've often found that you know, kind of sets things up a little bit better before you get there.
I just want to add to that, Mike, because I've gotten probably 10 or so, maybe more LinkedIn outreaches asking me if I will be at Web Summit. And the ones that get my response are the ones that are not salesy. What is in it for me is really what I want to know. Because it's, you know, we all know LinkedIn is kind of hard to get through the clutter a little bit, but it's a really good tool. And you know, I absolutely am excited to talk to some of the folks that have reached out, but I'm not excited to be sold something because that's going to be every day while I'm there. So that's just a tip in terms of differentiating yourself, is really kind of think about your audience and what they'd want to get from you.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, I'd like to dig a bit more into like the red flags and the green flags, maybe. Thinking about folks on the call who are going to be potentially getting in front of investors, or meeting with kind of important folks during the event. I'm curious from the 3 of you, when you connect with a founder, or what kind of early signals get you excited to learn more? What are those kind of green flags? And are there any red flags that, like on the flip side, kind of immediately make you cautious, or you see as kind of you know, unsuccessful ways to pitch when you're meeting someone for the first time? So Rob, maybe you've got your pro tips on how you do it. We'd love to hear it.
Yeah, there's a number. It's a tough one. I think, especially if you're a technical founder, one of the hardest things to do that's most important is really having your story down in a short, digestible thing. Don't start with your technology. Don't start with some crazy technical explanation of what you do. It's all about the problem, right? It's all about the problem that you solve, and defining kind of credibility there. So I think that's very important. Recognizing you've got a very small window of time to meet with someone, and recognizing some of the context often around what's going on. The show floor and everything is going to be extremely noisy, but you've got to be very clear in what what you want to get across. I think Reagan said it, the WIFM, right? The what's in it for me. You've always got to think about the person you're talking to, what matters to them. And I think I'll take another page of what Mike was saying when you're doing your LinkedIn research. If you are meeting investors in particular, it'll be hard to understand who everyone you're meeting with is on the fly, but understanding that they've got how they work. They've got capital to deploy. They're looking for certain things and certain signals, and those signals in the early stage are kind of like in the poll. It's a credible founding team that knows what they're going after, that hopefully has early or scaling product market fit and gets the shot. But I think you've got to have confidence. You got to go in. On the red flag, I kind of said it, I think, is don't dive into a deep technical discussion. This happened to me a couple weeks ago. Someone just came up to me and started talking about something crazy about their NVIDIA card and how their GPU performed, and I'm like, I don't want to know that. So that'll be the first one. Fast, be solid, have confidence.
Awesome. All right, Reagan, I'll come over to you. What are if you could add maybe some green and red flags for us?
Yeah, I mean, this is something I'm extraordinarily passionate about, because it's for me, it's about storytelling. It's getting your audience or that person to feel something, like to resonate with the problem you're solving, to resonate with maybe even how it can personally affect them. That's always a good win. So I guess some practical tips are to bring in as much real world context, as many stories that you have around your customer base or the impact that you've had. Use just that those evidence points are really going to help seal the deal, or allow the person you're speaking to kind of connect the dots. Ultimately everything we sell, or we're selling to humans, to people, and we can all find a way to connect with that. The best stories are going to be memorable. They're going to be something that someone remembers when we're thinking about how Web Summit went for them. So really, really try to find a way to be memorable in the stories that you're telling. In terms of red flags, I'd say for me, it's about those. There's so many stories and pitches that you've heard before. They're using the same language, the same jargon, the same proof points, or they're solving problems that have already been solved. So they're light on the proof points. They're light on the impact. And so wherever you can bring that in, I think is going to really help your story and help you be memorable. That's
great. Mike, I'm curious what your advice is when you're chatting with the folks you work with.
Yeah, so green light, this is a really good question. So green lights are, again, I sound super like a lawyer here, where I'm a measure twice, cut once kind of individual, very risk averse by nature, super fun to go out with, not really, but I would say, as a risk averse person who likes to be well prepared, the green light for me, and what I've seen resonate the best on the trade floor, are founders that come prepared. So when they are speaking to a potential investor, when they've done the LinkedIn research, when they've done the outreach, when they're meeting for coffee, they already know what that fund or what that investor is looking for. They've done the prep, right? And that's all part of that prep that Reagan talked about. And it's all part of that sort of purposeful kind of approach to the whole process. So when you've done the thing that I've seen work really, really well is where, and let's face it, this is building a relationship, right? And not everybody is gregarious and outgoing and Not everybody has a really interesting voice, or a great way to relay ideas. Some people are socially awkward. It's just the reality of it. But it is a relationship. So if you're prepared, but you're not socially super adept, you will still be able to be intentional and purposeful and get your message across, but in a way that's respectful of the person's time, right? And so you go and speak to a potential investor, and that you're too early for them. They love it when you start with, listen, I know your fund. I've looked at all your portfolio companies. We do fit within it, but it doesn't sound like we're the right stage of business for you right now, but I'd still love to just talk to you and hear what you think about the thesis and our TAM and what we're attacking as a business right now and the problems we're trying to solve. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, right? And we can stay in touch, and you never know, there might be a time we can work together in the future. That takes that person and puts them at ease because they know that they're not being about to be given the hard sell, right? They're not going to be lectured at for 90 seconds, or somebody's going to give them an elevator pitch and talk at them for 90 seconds. It's going to be a conversation. It's going to be relationship building. It's going to be purposeful and intentional, but not intimidating. And it's going to be enjoyable for the person receiving it because there's going to be a to and a fro and a relationship will blossom, right? So I think knowing who you're about to talk to or knowing about that organization or that person and what their predilections are is going to be super helpful, and it'll make you look really, really well prepared and really credible and somebody that person is willing to give time to. And I really like also that, building on that, I know you might not be the right investor for us right now, idea is I love that kind of, that's something Reagan brought up at the outset, was that you got to look long term, right? And in my world, I've been doing this for 23 years. In my world, the people that have reappeared in my life professionally in the most random ways that you can imagine, it would I could write a book about it. Like, I never knew that controller at that startup that had 2 people and a dog 20 years ago would end up as a CFO of a pubco that remembers me from that event back in London in 2025 or 2005 and wants to give me a huge M&A deal because they had a big degree of trust and we built a good relationship, right? So green light relationship, approach it intentionally but not intensely, and be prepared. Red light is where you're being talked at, right? So I just feel like the whole just let me finish, that whole thing is a kind of a real turnoff. So it's being very familiar with your PSOIAS, your problem, solution, opportunity, why us, and ask, knowing that, being very familiar with it, but it not being overly rehearsred, and so you can relay all those things without kind of the hard sell. And I often find because I'm business developing at these events as well, I will say to people, I'm a lawyer, I'd love to work with you, but that's not why I'm talking to you right now, right? Let's just get to know each other. What does your company do? What are your needs? Like, where do you need a CFO? Are you looking for a technical co-founder? Okay, I may have some people I can connect you to. So it's not, to your point, Reagan, it's not what I can get and extract out of you. It's what we can do together. What can we do together, right? And maybe I can introduce them to a technical co-founder that day. Maybe I can't, and maybe I'll never talk to them again. But at least we had a little bit of a relationship and a moment, and that's important.
I love that. I have an audience question here that might be a nice tag on to where we were talking about those relationships that might carry forward to future opportunities. So the question was, how do we follow up effectively with an investor we meet briefly at an event? But I might kind of ask it in the sense of, how do you keep those relationships over time, like beyond just, quickly, zapping their LinkedIn and connecting with them? do you guys have any advice for how to maintain and keep the good times rolling, maintain those relationships over, the next months or years, to keep those people kind of connected with the work you're doing? Reagan, maybe I'll come to you first.
Yeah, I mean, it's just connection points and follow up with them. Great chatting with you. Love to learn XYZ about them. Like, so you show that you're like, that you've listened, that you remember them, that you remember specific points about them. Use it as a chance to reiterate your, your story or your proof points. I think that's really important if you can be memorable in some way, shape, or form that relates to what you're ultimately trying to achieve. And then, check in. Like there was a few times, I can think of actually quite a few examples of Clio where we would just build a connection point over time. So it was, maybe it's a year later, maybe it's 6 months later. It's just like, look here, just great to see you. Saw you do this on, you can use LinkedIn or whatever. Saw you did this. Really exciting. Maybe I'll be there in San Francisco. Wouldn't mind talking to you. Or here's what we've been doing for the past little while, and boop, 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 so maybe some proof points around what's happening within your company or your customers or the impact that you've had. And just do that regularly. If they don't reply, they'll probably remember that you sent them an email multiple times over the course of the last couple of years. Just, be kind and considerate of their time. Like that, don't be annoying. Don't expect them to follow up with you. Just use it as that touch point to stay in their inbox or have your name appear in their inbox, because folks will generally remember that.
That's awesome. Rob, any thoughts? How to follow up professionally but not be annoying?
No, I think Reagan nailed it. I mean, I think we always have to understand, and Mike said this too. I mean, raising money and all these things, it's not transactional. It's relationship building. And Mark Suster, a VC out of the US, had this great blog post a million years ago about dots forming a line. And you can't expect to meet someone, pitch them, tell them you got something great, and have them write a check. This is going to be a long relationship. They want to check in and see how you're doing, see what's grown, what's happening, give them updates. I think what Reagan said is fantastic. Again, always ask or be inquisitive about certain things. And I think that's very, very, very helpful. And then I think the other thing, I'll give a book recommendation. A book called Influence by Dr. Robert Cialdini. If you haven't read that book, it's a classic. Talks about sort of the 6 levers of persuasion in the human brain, reciprocity, scarcity, urgency, the other ones. And I would read that book if you haven't, because there's a lot of very important things. I'll go back to the breaking bread and having a drink with someone thing. I always buy, even if it's with like a VC who's got a $500 million fund. That little reciprocity moment, like Mike, you said, I've had people. I did deal with a guy 20 years ago, same thing, and he came back and said, "I'll never forget that burger we had in Atlanta, and that lunch you bought me." Literally, we had a burger in Atlanta, and he brought it up for years. So I know sometimes you feel like someone else who's got big dollars should be buying, but it's the cheapest thing you can spend on. So I'll leave it there. I think Reagan covered a lot. Mike, I'm sure you got some great points too.
Yeah. This funny, like, so I had one where we landed Tencent as a client for all their Canadian M&A, which is an enormous mandate for a law firm, and their Canadian legal counsel just emailed me out of the blue and said, "Remember when I was an articling student at that firm we worked at, 15 years ago, and do you remember me at all?" And I was like, "Yeah, totally." No recall at all. He said, "You were so nice to me for the 3 days that our careers crossed, that I just thought if I ever got the chance to pay this forward to you, that I would send you work." And here I am at the chief Canadian legal counsel at Tencent, which was at the time the largest company in the world. So I was a superstar in my office for a little while. I got lots of high fives, but it was all because of the relationship and the little gestures. I didn't scream at him, 15 years ago. I just was kind and grabbed a cup of coffee with him. I'm pretty sure I probably paid for that too, Rob, to your point. But, I don't really have much to add to that point. I think it's been said, but I just wanted to share share that story. The only other thing I would say is I'm friends with a few VCs, and one of the things that they have said to me in the past, I try to keep my powder quite dry with them. Like, I don't send them clients and say, hey, look at these 12, look at those 14 clients, you know. So I try to maybe refer 1 or 2 a year that I feel genuinely in my soul have like slipped between the cracks. And other than that, I don't send any, but I do talk to them about outreach from potential issuer client or issuer investor investee opportunities, and what they respond best to. And one of the VCs said it best. He said, they don't, if we think that they're somebody we should look out for, just because we don't reply doesn't mean they shouldn't continue to stay in touch, because we read those emails from the clients or the potential investee companies. And he said the best things to send are updates, not an email blast that you send to all your shareholders or everybody that's signed up to your website. Don't send those. Send something personal. Send something that says, hey, I saw you raised Fund 3. Congratulations. Glad to see you're continuing to kill it. All the best. By the way, I just wanted to let you know that we've raised a friends and family round of $500,000. We got away without doing it on safes. All good. I'll tell you about it over beers later. Blah, blah, blah. Also, we hired our first CTO. Things are really happening. We made our first 100,000 in revenue. Just really quick hits, like very personal, very specific, very relevant to the things they said they would need to see from you before the relationship evolved. And the other thing was just send those along at every inflection point. And then the surprising thing he said was, mind you, this is one VC, said, I also don't mind hearing bad news. Like, if something bad happens, there's a bad negative inflection point, you have had a challenge, I'd like to hear that you've had a challenge, and I'd like to hear how you got around it, how you worked through it, how you prevailed, irrespective of the fact that one of the people that was going to, you know, write $100,000 check pulled out. So you had to find that 100,000 in a different way. How did you solve that problem? Because in the end of the day, to your point, Rob, you're investing in a relationship, right? You're investing in people, frequently people that are running businesses that are successful, but you're ultimately investing in the person. And so, you know, showing them that, you know, you've had adversity. It's not all, look at all the amazing things we're doing. It's like, look at all the challenges we've overcome as well, which I found quite surprising, because as a lawyer, I'm always trying to bury the skeletons for my clients.
Same with
Well,
being a marketer.
I might come back to, because we've got, you know, the CMO from Clio here, I couldn't help but dig a bit deeper on storytelling for pitches. And so maybe I'll come back just to see if we had any additional kind of thoughts for founders here who are going to be, you know, representing their VC-based companies with a world of people from around the world. Do you guys have any other kind of final notes on how to use storytelling for them to really make their company memorable? I know we touched on quite a bit of green lights, red lights already, but maybe connecting it back to, you know, I know Clio, you tell your story from the base of being a homegrown VC company. So maybe that you can reflect on that and how you think about this storytelling, and how you guys maybe could give some tips to our founders on how they pitch at Web Summit. Reagan, or sorry, Rob, maybe. I'll come to Rob first, then I'll come back to you, Reagan, because you've got lots to share.
Sure. No, and I think we've talked about it. It's such a key point, right? We are narrative story creatures, right? And creatures of attachment. So I think we attach more to things we can relate to. So as much as you can be relatable to someone, and again, boil down the incredible complexity of your technology or what it happens to be to, again, the problem and the story around the problem. And if you do have a great origin story, and it was a problem you experienced and said, you know, I was working at Meta and I was doing this and we saw this and this never worked, and we saw them spend $2 billion on something, and I was like, gosh, why are you doing that? And so we tested this, we tried it, and it worked, you know, and here's the problem. I would do that. It's really hard, right? It's really, really hard to get to that point where you've crafted a narrative story that you can tell really well, especially in a short period of time. So get help if you're not good at it, and practice it. a lot to friends, family, and then other people. And again, to Mike's point, sometimes it's a great reason to reach out to a VC or someone you meet at an event and say, I know you're not a great target investor for me, which of course makes them think, well, maybe I am. But if you say you're not, and say, can I pitch you and kind of get your blunt, honest feedback on it? And again, it's the old adage, ask for a sale, you get advice, ask for advice, you get a sale, and I think that's a great way to kind of approach it. But it's don't have no doubt about it. It's really hard. It's really, really hard. So work at it, try hard, practice it in front of a mirror, in front of people, Toastmasters or whatever, if you aren't used to speaking in front of people. But again, have that story for sure.
Awesome. Mike, your words of advice on pitch?
Yeah, I can add to that. That all sounds good. I would just repeat in front of the mirror. Be conversational, particularly when it's an informal setting. It's a pitch event. You're in a different environment, right? If you're just going for coffee or a beer and Web Summit's too loud, so you just kind of sequester yourself off to the side and they say, so, sell me on, what is your business all about? I would say practice it being conversational, right? Like, so you would approach it with like almost like a call and answer approach. Like, well, that there's a gigantic problem in AI where the compute power required is so high that, governments are really looking hard at this. Well, that, right? You've heard about that. Yeah. Yes, I'm aware of that. Okay. Yeah. So what we've done is we've built a solution for that, we believe will revolutionize it and actually bring the cost of the compute and the compute power necessary down. I won't go into the tech, but we're working on some patents and that should be done in the next year or so. Our go-to-market is roughly this, and we think that we need this much to get to $1 in revenue, and these are our targets. Our total addressable market, you might understand. So you're basically you're saying it almost you're having like, what's the word, Socratic conversation where you're involving them, you're asking them questions that you already know, like that you already know the answer to. They're responding, you're letting them give their input, you're reacting to their input. It's just a better way to pitch in an informal setting than just rattling off 90 seconds of your best presentation that you practice in front of your mom 10 times, right?
Brilliant. That's
I
excellent.
know it's hard to do. It's hard to do, but after you do it 1 or 2 times, you'll realize like the ability to sort of do the call and answer with a potential investor who wants to hear what your business is about. It ends up being a more collaborative conversation and one that they feel they're answering for you. You're asking them, so the compute power for AI is pretty heavy, right? Oh yeah, totally. Now, if somebody could solve that, well, let me tell you all about that.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Yeah, you can kind of predict how it'll flow and build out your talking points. I think that's excellent. Reagan, love to get your input on this idea of storytelling and how to make your pitch really memorable.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I think you both, Mike and Rob, covered so much of what I would have said, but I think clarity over complexity is probably a way to simplify it. I think, Rob, you might have touched on that earlier, is we don't need to hear all the ifs, the deep information about how you built the da 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 da. You want to just lead with the story. I think emotion again is something that I come back to. That's really what resonates with folks. They feel something about something that you're doing or something that you said. It resonates with them in some way, shape, or form. And I can give you a little example of how Clio does it. And something that's worked really well for us is Clio's a legal tech software company that sells to lawyers. That's the quickest way to explain just the very, specifics of what we do. But what we spend a lot of time, both internally and externally, talking about is our impact on the legal experience. Our mission is about improving the legal experience for all. It's about having an impact that's greater than just our technology. And we find that folks can resonate with that because everybody knows a lawyer, or everybody's life has been impacted by a legal challenge, or you know, it's amazing how many times I've heard my family, my mom, my dad was a lawyer, and this is how it impacted me, and it would have been great if we had this thing that made it better or easier. So it's those moments that not only connect with them personally, but it's also actually painting a much bigger story about your market opportunity, your product market fit, because it's resonating with their day-to-day, but it's also resonating with something actually much bigger than the problem that you might solve in this exact moment. So that would be what I'd have to add.
That's excellent. Thank you. We're getting close to time. I will maybe take one question from the chat, which is probably a question that runs through the minds of folks, is how do I justify the cost to attend a web summit? How do I justify the cost to my team? We've talked a little bit about that measuring of the ROI. I would say if you're paying for a place in the Lower Mainland, you've already paid most of the cost off to attend, because you don't have to take a plane or get a hotel, but every dollar counts. And so maybe I'll do a kind of rapid fire to the three of you on, how do you justify the cost to attend and make the most of it and get your ROI back? So Mike, maybe I'll come to you on this one first.
Sure. I'll do a very kind of Fasken, Mike Stevens, lawyer-centric perspective. You justify the cost. It takes a lifetime to build a network. Whether that's personally or in a business capacity and around your startup. These events, if you prepare, if you are outgoing, if you tick your to-do list, your goal, and you hit your goals and your objectives, really add an accelerant to the flame of building that network. And you will get exponential growth every time you bother to not only prepare, pay the money, and attend, but to actually achieve your goals and seek out that ROI. So that's how you justify it from my perspective, is that you cannot create a network sitting alone in your office surrounded by the same co-founders that you work with every day. That these opportunities come around 2 or 3 times a year, and they will add an accelerant to the flame of your network, which is invaluable.
That's awesome. Rob, thoughts?
Yeah, I'll build on what you said, Erika. Actually, I think, I'm trying to, as you said, I was trying to remember the last time we had something substantial here, which is probably the Grow conference 12, 13 years ago. That was the last time the world came here in tech. So there is no better opportunity to have an influx of business development opportunities, venture capital, people, events being organized in your home city, in your time zone, a bus ride, an Uber ride, a bike ride away, where the technology's evolved, where, again, everyone talks about the power of the Web Summit app and the follow-on groups and the WhatsApp groups and everything else to build the relationships and network that Mike was talking about. This would be the least expensive thing you could ever do to build it out, right? Versus, what's a plane to Toronto now? $1,200? Like, it's crazy. So you're at home in your own home currency, and the world's coming to our doorstep. So I think it's pretty hard to not justify it, quite honestly.
Reagan, thoughts?
One more thing. I think you're going to have short-term investments and you're going to have long-term investments, and you have to prioritize both. I would put this in the bucket of long-term investments that has some short-term benefits. You're going to learn a lot when you sit in the sessions. You're going to talk to a lot of people that will have short-term information shared with you, but it's also, you invest, everybody's investing in learning. Founders have to invest in learning as much as you can, and in particular, the networking part is a very long-term strategy. So don't look at this as, hey, I didn't meet this person that gave me this funding after this one meeting. It's that long-term investment that you're really playing around with here.
That's great. Coming up on time, I'll do one final rapid fire, which is just any final words of advice for our startup founders on the line, who may have really big ambitions. Any final words of advice before we wrap up today? Mike, 30 seconds or less.
Yeah, be bold but respectful of time.
Very respectful of time of you. Rob, over to you.
Build on Mike, 100% agree with that, and hustle. It's going to be busy. Take whatever caffeine you need, but hustle, get it done. It's going to be a lot of work.
Be organized and be present. Your day-to-day is going to be so busy. We know that it's hard to step away, but if you don't step away and actually focus on the event, you're not going to get that ROI. So be present.
Awesome. Thank you.